Hello and welcome to the Border View Farms / XL Seeds plot tour special. We're going to walk through the Golden Harvest corn plot and soybean plots that I've got here. We're going to talk about each individual set of genetics, hybrid, variety. We've got some agronomic trials, and we're going to do a thorough, in-depth dive into these plots, each individual variety, and what we've got out here. So this is my most sales pitchy video of the year, so I apologize. This one is a little bit different than what I normally do, but did this last year. I thought it was a really good video. I'm going to do it again. It's something awesome to be able to reference and to point people towards when they have some questions about the hybrids and what we sell. And it's going to be super educational for those of you that are not familiar with the lineup, corn farming and soybeans in general. We'll get pretty in-depth into what the differences are and why we have so many different options as far as genetics and what to plant. This is all from one company, and I have 24 different hybrids out here, 24 different sets of genetics, and it's not all the ones that we sell. So there's a lot of different options. How do you narrow it down? Which ones do we pick? What are the strengths and weaknesses of each individual hybrid? So that's what we're going to do here today. All right, so let's get started. We're on the early side of the plot here. Golden Harvest G95D32. So what you'll need to know about our numbering system before we go any farther than that, these two here basically signify the maturity of this corn. Corn is rated in days. It's really a heat units thing, or growing degree days. But standard industry nomenclature, I guess, is days in maturity. So this is a 95-day corn. This is very, very early for our area of the country. Once we get a couple of numbers down there, you will see that the numbers then start with, like that one there, is 0000H12. That is a 100-day corn. And then 02 will be a 102-day and so on. So we'll get that out of the way right from the start. The next thing when we're looking at these signs and the numbers that you need to be aware of is this one right here. On this particular hybrid, it is a 3220. 3220 means that has two broad lepidopteran traits, we call it, or what will control corn earworms, western bean cutworm, black cutworm, that kind of insects. And then the second two here is how many corn borer traits it has. So this particular hybrid has two traits to control European corn borer. There's probably a couple of different species, but corn borers in general. The 0 at the end of that signifies that there is not a rootworm trait in this. So this corn is all, for the most part, what you would consider a GMO or genetically modified. They have traits or events that we put in them in order to be resistant to certain things. They are all Roundup Ready and Liberty Link resistant, so that's the herbicide tolerance. And then we have traits to protect against corn borers, rootworms, and other secondary broad lepidopteran pests, like the corn borer, like the western bean cutworm, corn earworms, black cutworms, stalk borers, different type of things like that. So that gets the nomenclature and stuff out of the way. Let's talk about each individual set of genetics here. So I'm going to walk out in this one, 95D32. One thing you will notice is right on the end of these plots, sometimes it's a little yellow. That's a nitrogen application area, which is why we're going to walk out there just a little ways and see what we can see. So this is, like I said, the earliest variety in the plot at a 95-day. Usually the raccoons will come in and destroy the early entries in my plot. But looking down there, I don't see any coon damage, so maybe we'll actually get some good data out of it this year. Very good standability when you can see way down the row like that, so that's encouraging. It looks good from that standpoint. You will notice the bottom of this plant is dying, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, it's maturing. Two, it's dry and it's cannibalizing its stalks and the bottom leaves in order to fill out the ear. To be perfectly honest, I don't know a ton about this hybrid because it's so early. I don't plant it very often. Seems to have pretty good tar spot resistance and disease tolerance. We did not spray a tassel fungicide out here, so I expect to see fairly heavy disease pressure in certain areas, especially as we get towards the later part of the season. Let's pull an ear back, or a husk back. Nice looking ears, rather long and slender. I didn't count rows around, but it seems to be decent. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. That's average, normal. You can see that we're almost to black layer. That milk line that I've talked about before is right at the tip of my thumb right there. So another few days and this corn will be black layered, and at that point it is mature, or it's finished growing and putting anything into it, and rain is not going to help us anymore on this particular hybrid. Seems to be a sort of shallow kernel depth, not terrible, but again, we're on the super early side here, so not really in the heart of this one's maturity zone. I don't expect it to win the plot because, well, it's a 95-day corn. We don't want 95-day corn to win the plot, to be perfectly honest. 99E68. This is a 5122. 51, the 5 designates it as an Agrasure Duracade hybrid. Duracade is one of Golden Harvest or Agrasure's rootworm traits. You can see we've only got one broadleaf trait, 2 corn borer, and 2 rootworms. So this has the rootworm protection that that one does not. This hybrid was brand new a year ago. This is the first year that we've been able to have it out in the field here in 2021, but it was in my plots last year, and for a 99-day corn has been outstanding looking this year. Really nice early, even emergence, came out of the ground quite well, looked super impressive early, and I'm excited to see what this one is going to yield. So once again, we'll walk out here taking a look at the upper canopy. Fairly healthy. We do see some tar spot, maybe a little bit more than that last hybrid, but this is not severe by any means compared to some of the fields that I've looked at. Standability still looks pretty good. I don't see any broken stalks at this point or anything that would give me any concern. We can also do a little push test here and kind of give the stalks a little push, see if any of them snap over, or we can pinch them at the base. It's a little early for that, but anyway, we've got a few ears starting to hang down here. Those ones are done. Once they start hanging, they're not going to put any more nutrients into that plant. And you can see we got a few dead plants scattered through. I don't know if that's a disease or something else happening or just the plant's maturing. So let me peel some ears back on this hybrid. Nice. A little variation here. We've got some high and some low. We've got one hanging. We've got a little bit of a shorter ear here, a nice big long one there and there. Again, a long slender ear. I did break one in half. You can see our milk line is a little higher up on this one. It's not as mature as the 95-day was, and this at 4 days longer at 99. You wouldn't expect it to be. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 again. A nice ear. Again, this is really early. I don't know a ton about it, but I do have some customers planting in that sub 100-day corn. In my opinion, if you're planting 95 to 100-day corn, you need to have this one on your farm. So it looks good. All right, we're going to try and keep it moving here. Otherwise, this video is going to get super long. 00H12, 5122. So same trait package as the last one. This one's in a 100-day corn. I have some experience with this. I planted a fair amount of this last year. I had it down to Berkey, and it fell apart completely down there. We were super, super dry last summer at our Berkey farm, and this did not do well. It went down. It did not have good standability. The yield was not great, mostly because it was down. I did have a field of it up here that was replanted in June, and it was okay. It was nothing spectacular. I did not plant any of it again this year. I decided that 100-day corn is too early for us. Looking at the leaves and the canopy here, we do not have quite the plant health that the other ones had. You can see some northern corn leaf blight lesions here. And we've got, again, a little bit of tar spot. Actually, this one doesn't look too bad on tar spot, but I am seeing more of the northern corn leaf blight and just some general disease in the canopy that the last ones did not have. This long brown lesion right there is northern corn leaf blight. One of the reasons that I had planted this before is because it puts on this fun, impressive ear that throws rows around. Lots and lots of rows. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20 around on this one. Farmers tend to like rows around because it's impressive ear. It doesn't always translate to higher yield, clearly, but it is impressive looking. So, good hybrid, I think. You just got to make sure it's not on too dry of soil is my guess on this one. And watch the standability issues with it. But I think it does have its place and its fit. I just don't know. Maybe this was the year to do it because we've had plenty of rain. So anyway, moving on. All right, we're getting more into our maturity zone here. I'm starting to know a little bit more about these hybrids than the ultra early ones. 02K39, this is a 102-day corn. Again, we're a 5122 trait package. And a lot of these hybrids are offered in multiple trait packages. That's just the ones that we have here in the plot. This one is a nice, big, tall plant. The yield on it has been outstanding. It does have a hang-up, and that is grain quality with test weight, which is an issue for me, especially on the earlier maturing stuff. Wade, my agronomist, had put together some bullet points on some of the hybrids, and this is where he started maturity-wise, so I'll throw a couple of his points out here. 02K39, broadly adapted hybrid, sound agronomics, good emergence, roots, stalks, late season plant health, specifically on tar spot. So we'll verify that as we walk out here. Shouldn't see a lot of tar spot in it. Go anywhere placement, good performance on both poorly drained and drought prone soils. Good ear flex, and so your population can be anywhere from 30 to 38,000, he said, which usually when you see ear flex, you can keep it to the lower end of that range. But like I said, the biggest problem with it is test weight. So let's walk out here and see what we see as far as disease and ear type. This hybrid is much greener farther down the plant than what we have seen in some of the other ones. We are still seeing some northern corn leaf blight right here. A tiny little bit of tar spot, but nothing that's tearing the plant up just yet. Northern, look at that. That's those are some big lesions from the northern. So I will challenge Wade a little bit, actually, more so now. Look at the tar spot on this leaf. That's as bad as we have seen it out here. So yeah, I don't know about that late season plant health component there as much, but it is greener farther down in the canopy, which maybe that's where he's getting that from. It does look good. Standability, decent. I don't see any broken stalks, maybe down there a little bit, or maybe it's just the leaves hanging down in the row and I can't see quite as far as the other ones. Those ears are some of the most impressive we have seen. They're the longest, they're the fattest, they're the most filled out. They look good. Now, one of the issues when you have low test weight, and I will argue with you all day if you want to tell me that test weight has anything to do with the yield, because it doesn't, but that's a different video. But this throws big, fat kernels, and you can see it on this ear, how wide and thick those kernels are. When you get a big kerneled ear like that, generally your test weight suffers because the kernels don't pack into a test weight cup as well as a smaller kernel does. So that's why we have some issues with, man, them kernels are just massive with test weight, but the yield is going to be here. Let me see if I can, nope. Pretty good kernel depth to it. It's a relatively smaller cob. We got a long ways to go on that milk line, somewhere between a half to 2/3 milk line. A little bit of some insect feeding in some of these kernels, but that's pretty minimal, it looks like. This hybrid is going to yield well. It's going to have a really good yield to it. It's just that grain quality component that keeps it from being a lead hybrid for me. All right, I've got a cameraman now. Say hi, Brock.
Howdy.
So he's going to film for me while I talk about him a little bit more. 03R40. This one's been in our lineup for 3 or 4 years now. This is a 5222, so it has 2 broad lep traits. We talked about that earlier. The second one is our Agrosure Viptera. Agrosure Viptera is very good against western bean cutworm, corn earworm, all those pests that I talked about earlier. In fact, there was an argument to be made that it's the only effective trait against them. But nonetheless, 03R40, this is a 103-day corn. It has very good grain quality. And a year ago, I would have told you it's the best grain quality in our lineup. Now I'm going to say it's very good grain quality, and not because it got worse, because the rest of our lineup got better. Where 02K39 struggles, this one has its strengths. So the difference with this one, this is a more fixed ear hybrid. You have to plant it pretty thick in order to get good yields out of it. And if you put it on sand or drought-prone soils, it has a tendency to fall apart. So that means we need to make sure we're placing it right, putting it on your high productive, some of your better ground, and that's where this one is going to shine. I do have some of this out planted in the field that we planted it this year, and it looks really good, so we'll see. 03R40, sound agronomics, good emergence, roots, stalks, and test weight. Also provides a nice tar spot tolerance. Responds well to higher management, which means higher planting populations and spraying with a fungicide. Nice yield potential, and he says specifically in Northwest Ohio. So the guys up in Michigan don't like this hybrid, and I think it's because they put it on sands and it doesn't work on sands. We don't have that in Northwest Ohio, which is why it works here. So it may not work anywhere else in the country, but if you're in Northwest Ohio, this is worth looking at. if I'm picking one hybrid for a guy below 105 day, it's probably this one. All right, so here's what we've got for ears on this 03R40. You can see they're much more consistent. These ears all look the same. They've got just a little tip back. They're all about the same length. I'm guessing they're all about the same rows around. 18 would be my guess. Break that in half and count, Brock. But very consistent, fixed ear, looks great. Standability is fantastic. I can see half mile across the field looking through the rows. It's a very upright leaf. We don't have quite as much canopy closure here. Plant health wise, the bottom leaves are firing up and burning up. Top of the plant looks pretty healthy. Just a little disease and a little tiny bit of tar spot coming in on these middle leaves, but not too bad. 18 around, he says, and this looks a little more mature than the last one, actually. We've that milk line's a little bit farther down, so maybe a little drier this fall as well. Smaller kerneled hybrid, which means better test weight. 03B96. We have something unique to talk about on this one. So Wade writes that there's a bit more top end yield potential than the 03R40 next to it. That remains to be seen. This is brand new for us this year. I do have it in a field this year, but it's really a new launch for 22 crop year. This is the first year we've actually sold it. I got a few advanced units this year, which I should go look at. But anyway, that's beside the point. We'll see what the yield ends up on it. It has a little bit more ear flex than the 03R40, so you might see a little more variation, and it'll compensate if we have reduced stands or for whatever reason, or you can plant it at lower population. So I told you that 03R40 had good grain quality. This one has the best grain quality of any hybrid I've ever seen. So much so that Wade calls it our candy corn, because it has that beautiful dark orange kernel. It's almost like a waxy or a popcorn type kernel. Super high test weight. Really, really unique looking grain. I'll show you that as we go out here because you can already see it. But we'll see where the yield falls once we get plots out. If this one is indeed better than the 03R40, this will be my lead product. The one thing I have heard about it, let's see if he says anything in here. Yeah, late season stalks can be questionable on fields with poor fertility. So there's a little bit of a placement and watch out there. If this goes flat, I can't sell it. So we'll see. Right now it looks okay, but we'll walk out in there and see what we can find. Plant health looks decent. I am seeing a little bit of tar spot. It's not, I thought first, oh yeah, right there. Yeah, a little bit more, about as much as that 02K39, which is the worst one we've seen so far. Maybe a little bit better here. So far, standability looks great. I can see all the way across the field. As we push on these stalks, they sway, but they're not snapping off. That's a good sign. I just know that's the watch out. So we'll see there. Firing up on the bottom. Let's pull some ears. This is where this hybrid shines. All right, look at these ears, and you probably can't see it yet, but I'll show you a comparison in just a second. But they're very dark orange, very golden color, shiny coating. When I break one in half, you can see this outer ring is super dark orange, red almost. You can see that milk line pretty plainly. I had Brock go back to the last hybrid and pick me an ear. Look at the color difference when we hold them side by side. They're night and day difference, and this one's a fun one to harvest. If it yields better than the 03R40 than this hybrid, that'd be awesome. I would love to be able to sell this one, but got to prove itself yet. That does go to speak to the genetic diversity of Golden Harvest lineup. One of the things that I've always been impressed with or pleased with is how different our genetics are. I hate it when people stereotype an entire seed company based on one or two hybrids, because they're not the same. They're very clearly not the same genetics. They don't necessarily share parents or anything the same, especially as much as some seed companies are. So that helps diversify your risk. It gives you different options and different things that, you know, each hybrid has its strengths and weaknesses, just exactly what we're talking about. All right, 04G36. So this hybrid won my plot here in Berkey last year, and I think it was second at Waldron. Yeah, it was second. I had a 110 day that won it. So the thing to take away from this, or the thing that sets it apart, is how short that it is. I don't know if you can see the difference with the next hybrid over here, right there, but it's about a foot shorter than most of the other stuff. So I did plant a fair amount of this and have a lot of it out in the field. This one, you'll notice, is a 3111A. We have a few things to talk about with that. One, it is not a blended refuge, so this requires a separate 20% refuge, and there's only 1 corn borer, 1 rootworm, and then Agrisure Viptera, the broadleaf trait. So it's a triple stack, still fully protected, but it doesn't have stacked mode of action. Because of that, our ability to sell this hybrid is going to end with 2022 crop year. So I have it this year. The EPA is not allowing seed companies to sell non-stacked mode of action traits moving forward in 2023. So this will be the last year on this hybrid, which is a shame because it's a pretty good one. Very, very good standability related to that short stature. It's got a very thick stalk and it doesn't catch the wind, so it doesn't get blown down very easily. All right, agronomist notes on the 04G36, best drought tolerance in the lineup. So that'll tell you something and probably why it won my plots last year when we were dry. Short statured plant, stop blowing around. It fits poorly drained to drought prone soils, nice ear flex, allows low planting population, sound agronomics, and handle pops up to 36. Good fit for the 160 to 220 yield range. And if that doesn't scream Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan, where we farm, I don't know what does. Ears, plants, leaves look pretty good. Like I said, standability is fantastic on this one. We'll move through here a little quicker. Something I am seeing this year with this one that I don't like is the amount of tip back and just aborted kernels off of that tip. That pollinated out to there, and then they all died off for some reason or another. Heat stress, something, I don't know. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad hybrid, just means we gave up some of the top end yield potential. This one tends to throw a long, skinny ear. It's got that length flex, not girth flex, and I don't know. It doesn't look as impressive to me as it did last year, but I can't say that I pegged it as the plot winner last year either, so maybe it'll surprise us again. 05K08 5122A. Oh, I forgot to talk about the A at the end of that 04G36. It's here again. This A stands for Agrisure Artesian. Artesian is our drought tolerance trait and designates those hybrids that seem to have very good drought resistance. And so where you see an A at the end of that trait designator, that's what that means. Anyway, 05K08, this hybrid is not new, but I've never planted it before, or at least never really had it grow. I planted it one year and had to replant it all, which was not the hybrid's fault. This has been marketed as a Western hybrid and not suitable for Eastern Corn Belt, and I can't tell you exactly why that is. But we're going to go out here and look at it because it throws one of those really impressive ears. Doesn't look too bad from here. I can see a broken stalk down there or two, or some stuff that's leaning, so potentially we've got some stalk issues or maybe root issues. I'm not sure. I am seeing a little bit of tar spot in it, a little bit of gray leaf spot. Not too bad though, overall fairly healthy. Let's pull some husks. If you like kernel rows, this hybrid is for you. That is a lot. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 around on that one. And they're all that way. 20 to 22 is very, very common on this 05G36. It does have a fairly large cob, although this kernel depth doesn't look too bad. When you're doing yield calculations like I was in yesterday's video, this one's going to count up really, really well. The problem is these kernels are much smaller than some other ones, and you're going to take 90, 100, maybe 105,000 kernels per bushel rather than 75 or 80 like the bigger kerneled hybrids. So trade-offs. And I hope it does well for us. I will plant some of it next year if it does respectable in this plot. But we'll see. I have had really impressive ears, rows around like this before, where they just fall apart and they're not that great. So I don't know. You guys out west know this hybrid better than I do. Maybe it works better there. I'm hoping that it's going to be awesome. I really think it looks awesome. I just going by some past experience. So have an experimental. We're just going to glance past that one because I don't know anything about it. 07G73. So 07G is a brand new one for next year. Same situation as that 03B96 where I've got 2 bags of it out in the field. And I don't know a ton about this. A couple of weeks ago, though, Wade asked me to go out and take a look at it and send him some pictures of the ears, and I did. And what I found was a lot of tip back out in the field. We'll go out here and check this and see what it says. So we have a very popular 107-day corn. That's the next one we'll look at. I was really hoping that this one was going to replace it. I'm not so sure it's going to after seeing it for a year. We've got some tar spot out here. It's just not super impressive looking. Oh, it gets better out here. we get off the ends, but the tar spot is bad. Ooh, this one's definitely worse for tar spot than anything we've been in. Really bad. This hybrid's gonna die pretty quick, just based on what I'm seeing with that. Let's look at some of these ears and see if these are what I was seeing before is here or not. All right, well, these ears look better than the ones that I saw in the field. You can see they got a little crooked rows to them. That's genetics, that's fine. One thing that stood out to me right here, look, we've got a late emerger right here that's just a kind of a weed plant, spindly, didn't put on an ear, but the plant right next to it that had more space threw a double. It's got 2 ears, which is pretty rare, so kind of cool to see. It's got a little flex to it, apparently. But you'll notice some tip back. This here, I was seeing a lot more of this in the field. This hybrid had something happen, sort of a strange weather phenomenon, I guess, especially out in Wisconsin this year, where it had silk balling. And you'll see, look how fresh these silks are still here. You see it on this one as well. We've got viable, fresh silks. Why? Well, they didn't grow right. They got bound up in the husk and never emerged on this tip for it to accept pollen. And now there's no pollen left, so this isn't going to pollinate. And like I said, it was worse out in the field, but here it doesn't look so bad. And I don't know, maybe it's going to be okay, but that's a big watch out and caution for me is it going to pollinate okay? And maybe it was a fluke with this year's weather. I mean, we don't have weather like this year very often when we have plenty of rain, so it's entirely possible, but it seemed to be a temperature issue during pollination. And I don't know, it looks decent, but I got to get some data on this. We've got to get widespread data from more than just my plot for me to jump on board with it. Plant health definitely looks like a fungicide would have been beneficial out here. But I mean, it's still really green. It's just, there's a ton of tar spot, especially in this mid canopy here. So I don't know what the deal is. I know this 07G has really good data on it for the last 2 years. So hopefully it'll do as well this year and show, and it will replace this one, 07F23. I feel like I don't even need to talk about this one. We've had it so long. This is an old standby hybrid that everybody knows this one. It is just solid. It's never the showiest, but it is just consistent, solid performer. Fairly tall, does make a good silage hybrid. One thing to note, 3111. You guys know what that means from the last one. It's on its last year finally. Consistent hybrid, go anywhere placement. Very good emergence and roots, late season standability. Good overall plant health, including tar spot. So the guys in West Michigan that have golden harvest plots where they've had tar spot for the last few years, they can fly a drone over to their plots in September or early September, late August, like now. And this is the only hybrid that's green because the rest of them get decimated with tar spot. So has very, very good tar spot resistance. So one thing about this hybrid is the agronomics on it are so good that you can push the populations. Not because necessarily it's a fixed ear so much, but just because it can handle the higher populations, so you can plant it thicker. Consistent, long, skinny, nice, good ear. This is a good corn. It's been very, very good. We've been planting this hybrid since 2011, 12, somewhere in there, and it still has been very good. This is the one that I planted in a corn-on-corn situation because of its plant health and how good it is on some of the disease ratings and stuff, which is why it sticks around. So those are just really nice ears. Another new experimental here that I know nothing about other than that it's got a very unique tassel, very upright. That looks different than the rest. We'll move on to 08R52 here. There is another 108 day that I really like in the 08M20, but I think it's on its last legs. The tar spot's tearing it up this year. Anyway, 08R52, 3220. So we've got 2 broadleaf. It's got Agrosure Viptera in it and 2 corn borer. No rootworm traits in this. This corn has been very good yielder over the last couple of years. I have not planted it because the one year that I did was 2019 when we were super wet early. It got planted really late and it was super wet at harvest. And that's my fault for not giving it a fair shake. I'm going to plant it next year. But it, to my opinion, acts more like 110 or 11 day corn than 108 day. Just something to be aware of. It doesn't have great dry down. It does have fantastic yield and fantastic standability, and all of the rest of the agronomics on it are really, really solid. This hybrid has some very, very good top end yield potential. We've been having some people running in the 250, 260 range with it. So really good there. Little northern showing up. I don't see a ton of tar spot, although Wade did say that it was susceptible to tar spot in the notes that he had written there for it. So I don't know. We'll see where the yield comes in and what the moisture is on it. But this is This is one that probably needs to be more of a lead product at 108 day, which is the heart of my lineup and where I need to be selling corn at. So yeah, let's take a look. Wow, impressive. Long, very long ears, consistent. This looks really good. I'm gonna have to look really hard at this one. I like it. All right, now we're to two of my favorite hybrids, and we're going to talk about these two together because this is, if you can plant 110-day corn, I have two hybrids for you that you need to be planting, but they could not be more opposite of each other. All right, 10L16, we'll start over here. 5222A, I know this comes in other trait packages, including a conventional version. So I'm going to tear this hybrid apart and make it sound awful, and then I'm going to tell you why you should plant it, okay? 10L16 has terrible roots. It's a very small root system. It does not have the best stalks. It is not very good against tar spot or northern corn leaf blight. Those will tear this hybrid apart. Not great agronomics. It's just not great. However, 10L16 has massive ear flex, and it has, as long as you keep the populations low and you manage it, meaning don't plant over 34,000, 32 or under is ideal, and you spray it with a fungicide, this product will outperform anything in our lineup. I'm almost positive of it in most conditions. It will go anywhere you need it to go. I asked Wade what I should be planting in my irrigated field next year. He recommended this hybrid. This hybrid, 10L16, has won the Ohio State University yield trials, the third-party data, the last 2 years in a row. It won 5 out of 6 locations last year. This hybrid is made for Ohio. It is the best hybrid in my lineup, and I will try and sell it to every single one of my customers that I can get to plant 110-day corn, even with not so great at agronomics, because somehow or another, it manages to still win everything. So here are some ears from out in the middle of the field. Those are impressive. They look really good. I'm going to show you one on the end to show you what kind of flex it's got, though. Here is our really good ear out of the middle of the field. Look at what it'll do when it's out here by itself and you don't have that population. I mean, that ear, gosh dang it, my phone is not focusing. I need a shadow. Brock, stand behind me. It is just crazy impressive. And that ear, I mean, filled to the tip. That hybrid has it. Plant it. Just plant it, please. All right, now I told you I was going to talk about that with 10D21. So 10D21 is just about the opposite. It has the best roots of anything in our lineup. It has great stalks. It has an excellent in-season or late-season plant health. This one you need to plant at 36,000 plus because it's a very fixed ear. It does not flex. These ears are not going to look good. This is not going to win this plot because I only planted it at 32,000. But this is the hybrid that I had in my irrigated corn last year, and look how green it is. This is the irrigated corn hybrid that I had last year, run 273. This corn in a high yield irrigated environment or anywhere you can push populations is the corn to plant. Not super long, super consistent, like I said. Push the populations and you'll be happy with it. All right, we're going to start moving through this maybe a little quicker. I need to because this video is going to be super, super long. Anyway, 11V76. This is one of those corns that I tried new this year. Don't know a ton about it. Agronomics look pretty good on it. It has some ear flex and can stand lower populations. This is the one that I planted in April that got snowed on, and it looks really good, has looked really good all year. Supply and availability on this one is very, very tight for next year, though, so can't help you much with that. Oh, one thing I did want to note on the 11V and the 12S, the next one, and a couple of the ones we've done before, but they are available as Enogen hybrids. I've talked about Enogen a little bit. I'll talk about it some more some other time in the future, maybe when we're up watching them chop corn. Oh, yeah, we're going to go film them chopping corn here pretty soon when they start chopping. Anyway, I just wanted to hit on it real quick and what Enogen, or what you can find out here with this. And remember the other day we found that red ear of corn. That's the marker trait in the Enogen stuff. It used to be this where you had random purple kernels throughout the ear, and now they've switched to the whole ear being red on about 5% of the plants out there. So I wanted to highlight that while we were doing this video. All right, 12S75. Boy, you can see the drought start to take hold on this one. The leaves are rolling up a little bit. Very upright leaf. Wade calls this our landlord corn because it has such good early season emergence and vigor, and it's just a very pretty plant. It comes out of the ground great. It looks great all year and has outstanding plant health, agronomics. This is really good corn. We're pushing 112 days here, which is getting to be the full season end of what I will plant. But this is good corn. You want to keep your populations up a little bit, 32, 38,000, somewhere in that range. Does respond well to high management, fungicide, split applications of nitrogen, but pretty good, consistent, looks good on the standability to this point. I am finding tar spot. There's quite a bit of tar spot starting to set in on this one too. Pretty impressive, nice ears, long, slender ear on this one. Sort of small diameter, but it's got some length to make up for that. You can see our milk line is still clear out here at the end, so we're seeing that maturity difference where we started, it was right down at the tip, and now we're clear out to the top of the kernels. That's the difference between 95 and 112-day corn, apparently, at least here this year. All right, we're to the point where I don't know anything about these hybrids, so I'm going to kind of just point them out and glance through them and not walk out there because I just don't know anything once we get to the 113 days. There's 3 of them here, though, 13D55, 3220. I can tell you what Wade had to say about it. No, I can't because Wade didn't say anything about this one. The next one here is 13P84. That one's in there. That's exciting agronomics, strong root stalks, disease tolerance, and test weight. Performs well on poorly drained acres. Upright plant type, great for increased populations in 20-inch rows. Still responsive to increased planting populations, even though more ear flex than 10D21 down there that we talked about. That's the very fixed ear. So, yeah, you can definitely see a long ways down those rows. Very, very upright leaf on that one. 13Z here, I am somewhat familiar with this hybrid. This is that Enogen corn we looked at last week, was this set of genetics in an Enogen bag or with the Enogen trait added to it. Good early season vigor, emergence, works well north of the zone. So when they say north of the zone, that means we don't typically plant 113-day corn, but this one works well here where it would be a very full season corn for us. So, yeah, this is one to look at for guys that are really pushing the maturities. We don't push it quite this far. All right, well, that wraps up the corn variety trials. So if you guys have any questions about any specific hybrids or my experiences with any of them in that maturity range, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Just go ahead and leave a comment down below. This video is getting long, so I think we're going to split corn and beans and probably publish 2 videos tomorrow. Aren't you guys lucky? I do want to keep working down this way through the plot, though, because I have my agronomic trials in there, and we're going to talk about those in this video as well here. A couple of them we'll just glance through because there's not really much to show, and then some of them we'll get out there and look a little bit closer. The first 2 trials that I have here is a seed treatment difference. So I talked a little bit back in March or April when we were treating seed about this Viantis. That is a new fungicide we're adding to our seed treatment. Next year, all of our corn will have it. In 2 years, all of our beans will have it. But I did get a strip of the corn, so this is with the Viantis. This strip is without the Viantis. It's the same hybrid, same genetics, just with and without that. So we'll see if there's any kind of a yield gain to it there. But nothing that we're going to see agronomically at this point in the year. Seed treatments have done their thing and are long gone at this point. All right, so the next 3 strips that we have here is a seeding rate trial, and we did 28,000 plants per acre, 34,000 plants per acre, and then 40,000 plants per acre. And I'll just walk out here and show you the spacing a little bit. You got to get out here to see where it actually was the spacing, but I pulled some ears and we'll show you that comparison in just a second as well. But you can see we've got a fair amount of space between the stalks. Everything looks pretty good out here. This is a different hybrid than was not one in the plot. It's that other 108-day I was talking about. And you can see tar spot everywhere. 08M20. Anyway, we'll go look at the 34,000 spacing. Definitely a little bit closer together here, and 34 is relatively heavy for our soils and conditions. 32 is kind of our standard. So, but yep, you can see that here. And then the next one is at 40,000. And I'll go show you how close together that those plants are. And there's the 40,000 spacing, much closer together. I don't know how well that shows up for you guys there, but it is there. So now, what does that do to our ear size? Well, let me show you. Different hybrids will respond differently to ear population, like we talked about before, but this one is at 28, this one is at 34, this one is at 40. Clearly at 40, we pushed it too far and we aborted off our kernels. Now, is 40,000 ears this size better than 34 this size? Is it better than 28 this size? Just a guess right now, 34 is going to win this. This ear is a little bit bigger than this one, but having 6,000 more of these per acre is going to more than offset the size of the ear difference. This one, we pushed it too hard and lost it. I would not be surprised at all to have standability issues out there later this fall. Ah, yes. Next is our seeding depth, planting depth trial. And we did 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and then as deep as the planter would go. And the 2, 3, and deep, I didn't notice any difference early. I did, however, notice quite a difference in this 1 inch stuff, and I don't know if it'll still show up, but we're gonna walk out here and see what we can see. So stand-wise, it doesn't look that bad. They're all here. However, look how many spindly plants. This one here, this one here, this one, this one. You know, all of these, and they have tiny little ears on them. This one, those are late emergers that sat in dry dirt and did not come up when the rest of it came up. And so they were basically a weed. They were behind all year, and they don't have the same stalk diameter. They don't have nearly as good of an ear on them. Here is one that it's got an ear, but it's not much of an ear. Yeah, that. So that's why even emergence is so important, and planting depth and getting them into moisture is part of that. Boy, look at that stuff dying. Those leaves are just getting torn up. Oh. I could walk out there and show you that we don't see that as much in the 2 and 3 inches deep and the deeper stuff, but you guys are just going to have to believe me. I'm tired of walking through this tall tasseled corn. So our next trial here, and these last ones, I doubt you're gonna be able to see much except for maybe one of them. This was a starter rate trial. We put no starter on this strip. We put 10 gallons per acre and 20 gallons per acre on the next 2 strips. And what I've seen in the past from this is that the corn that gets starter, especially the high rate of starter, is usually drier in the fall. 2 to 3 points drier moisture of the grain, and that makes a big difference. So we'll take those to yield and see, but there's just not a lot you're gonna physically see out of them right now. All right, moving on. We've got a nitrogen trial here. Let me count rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So right here would be the split between the rows that got 0 side dress nitrogen and the rows that got 125 pounds of N. And if you looked at my drone video yesterday, this strip, this side, stood out like a sore thumb. It's starting to be less and less, but you can see the nitrogen deficiency coming way up the plant. It's yellow. It just looks terrible. Where this side has at least got some green to it yet. We are firing up and running out of nitrogen. Only 125 pounds here, which is on the low side, but it looks better than that does. Counter that 125 strip with this one that got 250, and it's much darker green most of the way down the plant. This corn got plenty of nitrogen and looks just fine. In fact, it looks way better out here. Like, that's green, 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 green. We do not see the nitrogen deficiency at all. That's good. I would expect there to be quite a yield difference to go along with that, but we'll see this fall, won't we? The next trial that we have out here, if you ignore the yellow stuff at the start until we get out where they actually got some nitrogen, this is our V5 fungicide trial, early fungicide. This strip got it, the one next to it did not. And we've got that trial here. We'll be able to have a little side-by-side here. So that's what we've got for our corn plot. And we'll have some really good data come off of that this fall. I'll try and remember to share it with you guys. Make sure to remind me. And like I said, questions and comments on any of this stuff, be sure and let me know. So, all right, I think we're going to end this one here and start a new video for the soybeans so that I don't have a 45-minute long video, and we'll just do 2 separate ones. So, thanks for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to check out the next one here with the soybeans in it, and we'll see you guys there. Oh yeah, wait. Before you go, if you are anywhere close to Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan, Southern Michigan, Northeast Indiana, and you're interested in planting golden harvest corn, I would be happy to talk to you about it. If you are not in that locale and you are interested in planting golden harvest corn, look up who your local advisor is, your seed advisor. Contact me. I will help put you in touch with somebody. And Guys, Golden Harvest has great stuff. Every seed company has very good genetics. I'm not going to argue for 1 second that ours is way better than anybody else's. The biggest thing is finding somebody that knows what they're talking about and can help you put the right genetics in the right place on your farm and figure out what works for you. Because it is not a one-size-fits-all, this is our best hybrid, you just plant it everywhere. That does not work. And, you know, I'm in the fields. You guys see how much I'm in the fields, walking stuff, looking at it, and knowing what our hybrids are doing. So I feel like I have that expertise, at least for here in our little corner of the world. I know what our hybrids do, how they perform, where they work, where they don't, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. And from my experience, most Golden Harvest seed advisors are doing things like I am. They know what they're doing. Our genetics are good. We have excellent, excellent genetics, and it's worth planting. So Golden Harvest employees that are watching this, I'll expect my commission check or my sponsorship money in the mail. But yeah, plant them, guys. All right, let's go do beans.